On the day of my son's preschool graduation, the principal stood in front of all the parents and praised my wife's ex-boyfriend for being an amazing father. Mr. Brooks is such a responsible, loving dad. Over the past 5 years, he picked up Leo 1,097 times and only missed 3 out of 36 family events. My wife, Chloe, smiled and chimed in. He really worked harder than me to make sure our boy grew up safe and happy. I froze. Chloe had always told me that Julian Brooks was just a family friend who occasionally helped out when we were busy. But in the graduation memory book, Julian appeared in 462 out of the 487 photos. For 5 years, I worked late every single night and handed every penny of my paycheck over to Chloe. I did it because I felt guilty for not spending enough time with her and Leo. In that exact moment, the truth slapped me in the face. This family had never lacked a father. Seeing me stare at the page without moving, Chloe reached over and snapped the album shut. You're always working overtime. Of course you weren't in the photos, she said, her voice laced with impatience. There will be plenty of chances in the future. Right then my phone buzzed. It was my project manager on WhatsApp, asking if I was willing to be relocated to our overseas branch for 3 years. I looked at the happy family of 3, smiling back at me from the cover of the album. I typed 2 words. I'll go. Chloe didn't know. This time, there would be no future for us. My manager replied almost instantly. Ethan, does your family want to come along? We can arrange corporate housing for them. I wrote back. No need. Just me. Ethan, why are you just standing there? Chloe called out, her voice sharp with irritation. It was time for the graduation family photo. The photographer signaled for us to squeeze closer together. But Chloe was already holding Leo's hand, and Julian was standing right next to them on the other side. The only spot left for me was on the very edge of the frame. The photographer stared at us for 5 seconds, looking thoroughly confused. Sorry, who is the dad? Julian took a polite step back. Oh, I'm not. But Leo grabbed Julian's hand tightly. Julian is my dad. The surrounding parents erupted into soft giggles. Some whispered about how sweet it was that the boy was so close to Julian. Chloe didn't bother to correct him. She just patted Leo's head with a soft smile. Stop messing around, Leo. She said the words, but there wasn't a hint of disapproval in her eyes. You walked over. Leo immediately hid behind Julian's legs. Mom, I don't want Mr. Miller in the photo. Every time he comes home, he just checks my homework. He doesn't even know how to smile. Chloe frowned at me. Did you hear that? You've let your own son become a stranger to you. You really need to think about your behavior. I looked her in the eyes. Why do you think I work overtime every single day, Chloe? Do you really not know? Oh, here we go again, she whispered, rolling her eyes. Today is Leo's graduation. Do you have to bring up money right now? Julian quickly stepped in to play the peacemaker. Chloe let it go. Ethan is only doing what he thinks is best for the family. He stepped aside, offering me his spot. Ethan, you stand here. I'll take the photo for you guys. And so, my wife and the boy remained in the frame. I stepped behind the camera, just like I had done for the last 5 years. After the shoot, the principal handed out the memory books, asking parents to write a blessing on the final page. Just as I picked up the pen, Leo snatched it out of my hand. You can't write in it. I want Julian to write it. I looked at Chloe. She avoided my gaze, but her voice was smooth and dismissive. Julian spent so much time with him at school events. It's natural that Leo wants him to write it. You're an adult, Ethan. Don't pick a fight with a kid. I let go of the pen. Fine. Chloe blinked in surprise. She probably didn't expect me to give up so easily. Julian took the pen and wrote in the book. May you grow up strong and happy, Leo. Daddy will always love you. No one in the room seemed to think the word daddy was out of place. I lowered my head and opened the relocation contract on my phone. Duration 3 years. Departure date 7 days from now. I digitally signed my name. After the ceremony, Chloe suggested we all grab dinner. I assumed all included me, but when we arrived at the restaurant, I realized she had only booked a table for 3. The host had to drag an extra chair and squeeze it into the cramped aisle. Chloe glanced at me. Didn't you say you had to go back to work tonight? I took the night off. Well, you should have told me earlier, she grumbled under her breath. I already ordered. Julian doesn't eat spicy food, and Leo is allergic to seafood. We can't really add anything new to the order. We had been married for 7 years. I had a sensitive stomach, but she didn't even bother to ask if there was anything I could eat. Julian handed me the menu. Ethan, order whatever you want. It's on me tonight. Chloe immediately pushed the menu down. Julian, your startup is just getting off the ground. Save your money. She turned to me. We're all family anyway. It doesn't matter who pays. In the end, I paid. It came out to $280. While Julian took Leo to the restroom, Chloe took the opportunity to speak to me. Don't take what happened earlier to heart. Leo is still young. He's naturally going to be closer to whoever spends more time with him. Julian doesn't have a wife or kids. Letting Leo call him dad is just a little comfort for him. I looked down at the receipt. What about me? She paused. What about you? Nothing. I put my phone face down on the table. There was no point in explaining. She would never get it. To her, I was just being jealous again. When Julian brought Leo back, the boy was clutching a brand new toy car. Leo was jumping with joy. Julian is the best. Chloe smiled. How much was it? Let me PayPal you. Oh, it was only $500. Don't worry about it. No way, I can't let you pay for that. She immediately sent him $800 on PayPal. I stared at her, remembering last month when Leo was hospitalized with a high fever. Chloe had begged me to pull consecutive all-nighters at the office to secure our quarterly project bonus. She told me the family was completely broke. That night, I worked 19 hours straight until my stomach bled, and my co-workers had to rush me to the ER. I was hospitalized for 3 days. She visited me exactly once. She stayed for less than 30 minutes before Julian called, saying Leo was crying to go to Disney World. She grabbed her purse and ran. Before she left, she even blamed me. It's not like you had major surgery. Stop being so dramatic. After dinner, Chloe told me to drive Julian home. He had a few drinks tonight. So did I. You only had half a glass of wine. She looked at me with deep irritation. Julian has a weak stomach. Why are you comparing yourself to him? I pulled out my phone and opened Uber. One car can't fit 4 people anyway. You guys go ahead. Chloe looked at me like I was throwing a childish tantrum. Ethan, what is wrong with you today? Just because you weren't in a few photos, you're going to act like this all night? Julian sighed. Forget it. I'll just call a cab. Leo immediately wrapped his arms around Julian's leg. No. I want to go with Julian. Chloe rushed over to soothe the boy. Nobody cared about me. My phone buzzed with an email from HR, asking me to fill out my emergency contact info for the relocation. I stared at the emergency contact box for a long time. In the past, I always wrote Chloe's name. But on the day of my endoscopy, the hospital had called her 11 times. She hadn't picked up once. I deleted her name. I typed in my coworker Zach. I hesitated for a second before clicking submit. The next day, Chloe texted me to pick up the graduation albums from the photo studio. The receptionist checked the order and brought out 3 massive boxes. Mrs. Miller ordered 5 family albums, 2 large canvas prints, and 100 individual prints. The total is $2,200. You just need to settle the remaining balance of $1,800. The sample photos were laid out on the counter. Chloe, Julian, and Leo were all wearing matching white shirts. The 3 of them were holding hands on the beach, hugging on the grass, and kissing the boys' cheeks. If I didn't know the truth, I would have thought they were the perfect family. I asked the receptionist, when were these taken? Last month, she said, flipping through her records. They spent 2 full days shooting. Mr. Brooks was incredibly cooperative. Last month, Chloe had told me Leo had a highly contagious flu. She made me stay at a cheap motel, so I wouldn't bring the virus back to the office. I lived in that motel for 9 days. Every evening, I drove by the house just to leave fresh fruit, groceries, and medicine on the porch. As it turned out, they weren't sick at all. They just didn't want me in their family photos. The receptionist pulled up the digital gallery. Out of 2,641 photos, Julian appeared in 1,093 of them. I was in exactly 7. 5 of them were just my blurry reflection in a mirror. One was of me carrying a heavy refrigerator during our move. The last one was a shot of me crouching down in the rain, changing a flat tire on Julian's car. The receptionist noticed my pale face and asked quietly, "Sir, are you still paying?" "No. Tell the person who placed the order to pay for it." Less than 3 minutes after I walked out of the studio, Chloe called. "Ethan, what the hell is your problem? The albums are Leo's graduation gift. You can't even spare a little money for your own son. You placed the order, Chloe. But you're his dad." The moment the words left her mouth, the line went dead silent. She probably remembered who the principal had praised as the good dad yesterday. I didn't call her out on it. Yeah, anything else? Her voice softened slightly. "Come home early tonight. I made beef stew. Let's talk." For 7 years, every time she needed me to pay for something or clean up Julian's mess, she would make beef stew. When I got home that night, the table was set with beef stew covered in cilantro. She always remembered that Julian loved cilantro. She never remembered that even the smell of cilantro made me physically ill. Julian was sitting on our couch. In front of him was a stack of business loan documents. "Ethan, I'm really sorry about this," Julian said, looking sheepish. "My startup needs to renew its business credit line, and the bank requires a guarantor with a stable, high-income job." Chloe slid a pen across the table toward me. "It's only $100,000. Julian's business is doing great. He'll pay it back in no time." I looked at the co-signing agreement. What about the $50,000 I lent him last year? Has he paid that back? Chloe's expression tightened. Why are you keeping score? We're family. Julian isn't an outsider. I looked up at her. Then who is? Chloe completely lost her patience. Ethan, are you seriously throwing a tantrum just because of what Leo called him yesterday? Is it really worth acting like this? I pushed the contract back. I'm not signing. This was the first time in 7 years I had ever said no to her. Julian quickly stood up. Chloe, don't force Ethan. He works hard for his money. It's only natural that he's wary of me. Hearing this, Chloe got even angrier. Look at him. Even Julian is trying to understand you, and look at how you're acting. I stood up and went to the bedroom. Before I closed the door, I heard her whispering to Julian. Don't worry. He's just throwing a little fit. He'll sign it in a couple of days. I opened the closet. I only took my passport, my work ID, and an old photo of my late mother. Nothing else in this house was worth taking. With only 3 days left before my departure, HR asked me to finalize my dependent benefits. The apartment we lived in was a corporate subsidized unit. Since I was going overseas, my family either had to take over the lease at the full market rate within 30 days or vacate the property. Leo's premium private health insurance, his preschool tuition subsidy, and Chloe's parents' health coverage were all tied to my corporate benefits account. The HR rep asked, "Do you want to keep these active for your dependents?" I remembered when Chloe's father Robert had heart surgery, and I paid $40,000 out of pocket. When he was discharged, her parents held Julian's hand and cried. Julian is such a good boy. He's been running around helping us, he's better than a real son. In reality, Julian had only stopped by once to drop off a basket of apples. I was the one who handled the admission paperwork, booked the top specialists, and paid the bills. Cancel all of them, I said. The HR rep looked surprised. Even for your wife and son? Yes. Follow standard procedure. When I left the office, Chloe sent me a flurry of messages on Snapchat. Don't work late tonight. Leo wants you to make those garlic parmesan chicken wings he likes. By the way, I left Julian's loan paperwork on your desk. The last sentence was the only one that mattered. I didn't reply. When I stepped out of the office building, I saw Chloe's SUV parked by the curb. It was rare for her to pick me up from work. But Julian was sitting in the passenger seat. Leo was in the back, waving at me through the window. Hey, Mr. Miller. Get in. A flash of embarrassment crossed Chloe's face. The kid just can't change his habits overnight. Don't give him a hard time. I opened the back door. The back seat was piled high with Julian's suitcases. Chloe quickly explained. Julian's landlord suddenly decided to sell the house. I told him he could stay with us for a few months. Since your home office is usually empty anyway. That home office was where I slept every night after working until 2 a.m., so I wouldn't wake her and the kid. And now she was giving that away too. Sure, I said. I shut the car door. I'll go back to the office and pack my things. She let out a massive sigh of relief. I knew you wouldn't be petty about this. Oh, by the way, we changed our graduation trip. We're going to Hawaii instead of the lake house. Julian is a great swimmer, so he can watch Leo. You've been so busy with work anyway, so you don't have to come. I looked at them. When are you leaving? The day after tomorrow. The day after tomorrow was also the day I was leaving for the airport. Chloe paused, as if remembering something else. Can you transfer me $3,000 for the trip? Things are a bit tight this month. Julian made a half-hearted attempt to stop her. No, Chloe, let me pay for it. Chloe immediately snapped back. Your company needs every dollar right now. Ethan makes a great salary. $3,000 is nothing to him. I nodded slowly. Got it. They thought I was agreeing to send the money. In reality, I had finally realized just how far this marriage had devolved into a complete farce. The next morning, the corporate relocation shuttle pulled up to my building. I only had one suitcase. The driver helped me load it into the trunk and asked casually, "No family here to say goodbye?" I checked my phone. Chloe had posted on Instagram at 5 a.m. It was a photo of her, Julian, and Leo waiting at the airport gate. The caption read, "Our little family of 3, off to Hawaii." I locked my phone. It wasn't that they didn't know what family of 3 meant. And it wasn't that they forgot about me. They just truly believed that no matter how many times they threw me away, I would always be waiting right where they left me. The driver shut my door. As the car started to roll, Chloe's call flashed on my screen. The moment I picked up, she demanded, "Ethan, why hasn't that $3,000 cleared yet? And Julian's loan documents, he needs them signed today." "Where the hell are you anyway? Where the hell are you anyway?" Chloe's sharp voice echoed through the phone speaker, loud enough for the shuttle driver to glance in his rearview mirror. I looked out the window as the shuttle merged onto the highway leading to the international terminal. The morning sun was just rising over the horizon, painting the sky in pale shades of gold and gray. "I'm at the airport," I said softly. On the other end of the line, Chloe paused for a second before letting out a loud, theatrical sigh. Oh, so you're coming to Hawaii after all? You could have just said so instead of playing these childish silent games. Did you bring Julian's signed loan documents? I didn't buy a ticket to Hawaii, Chloe, I said, my voice completely flat, devoid of any anger or warmth. I'm boarding an international flight. I accepted a 3-year corporate relocation. Silence deadened the line. What? What are you talking about? Chloe's voice cracked slightly, the arrogant confidence dropping out of her tone. What relocation? You never mentioned anything about going overseas. You never asked, I replied quietly. Just like you never asked why I lived in a motel for 9 days last month, or why I was hospitalized with stomach bleeding. You were too busy taking family photos with Julian. Ethan, stop exaggerating, Chloe snapped, though her voice carried a new, frantic edge. If this is about the $3,000 or the loan, we can talk when I get back. Just send the transfer right now, Anne. I canceled all your dependent benefits yesterday, Chloe, I interrupted smoothly. Your premium health insurance, Leo's tuition subsidy, and your parents' medical coverage have all been terminated. You did what? She shrieked into the phone. Ethan Miller, have you lost your damn mind? The company apartment lease expires in 30 days. I continued, unbothered by her screaming. You can either take over the lease at $4,200 a month or pack your things and leave. As for Julian's $50,000 loan from last year, my attorney served him with a legal demand for repayment this morning. Ethan, don't you dare hang up on me. Ethan. Goodbye, Chloe. I pressed the red button on the screen. Then I popped open the SIM tray, pulled out my phone card, and snapped it cleanly in two. I tossed the broken pieces into the small trash bin beside my seat. The shuttle pulled up to the International Departures Terminal. I grabbed my single suitcase, stepped out into the crisp morning breeze, and walked through the sliding glass doors without looking back once. Behind me, thousands of miles away, the life I had built on sacrifice was already crumbling into dust. At the luxury beach resort in Maui, the sun was shining brightly over the turquoise ocean. Chloe stood at the front desk of the resort, her face pale as she stared at the card reader screen. Transaction declined. The receptionist smiled politely. I'm sorry, Mom. The supplementary corporate card under the name of Ethan Miller has been frozen by the primary account holder. Do you have another form of payment for the $3,200 resort deposit? Julian walked over, holding 2 tropical drinks, looking slightly impatient. Chloe, what's taking so long? Leo wants to go down to the private cabana. Chloe's hands were shaking as she pulled out her personal debit card. Try this. 1. Transaction declined. Insufficient funds. Sweat broke out across Chloe's forehead. Over the past 5 years, every dollar she earned from her part-time boutique job went directly into buying luxury clothes, expensive skincare, and funding Julian's lifestyle. She had never kept a savings account because Ethan's paycheck was deposited straight into their joint account every 2 weeks. She looked at Julian desperately. Julian, do you have a card we can use for now? Ethan is having a technical issue with his account. Julian's smile stiffened. Chloe, you know my startup is short on liquid cash. Right now, every dollar I have is tied up in inventory. It's just $3 grand. Chloe whispered frantically. We can't even check into the rooms. Nearby, 7-year-old Leo pulled on Julian's sleeve. Julian, I want the huge toy boat in the gift shop. You said you'd buy it for me. Not right now, Leo, Julian snapped, his usual gentle, patient facade slipping. For a fraction of a second, Leo froze, shocked by the harsh tone. He looked at Julian, then looked at Chloe, his lower lip trembling. Julian yelled at me. Chloe barely paid attention to her son. She ducked into the restroom and used the hotel Wi-Fi to place an emergency call to Ethan's company HR department. I need to speak to Ethan Miller's supervisor immediately, Chloe demanded the moment the line connected. My husband blocked our family credit cards while we're on vacation. This is financial abuse. The HR representative's voice was professional, cold, and entirely unbothered. Mrs. Miller, Mr. Miller formally filed his international transfer paperwork 3 days ago. Per his explicit written instructions, all dependent supplementary accounts, corporate benefits, and housing allowances associated with his employment have been terminated. You can't do that. Chloe screamed into the phone. I am his legal wife. Actually, Mrs. Miller, the HR rep added calmly, Mr. Miller's retained divorce attorney served our legal department with a formal notice of marital separation yesterday morning. You are no longer listed as his dependent in our system. Good day. The line went dead. Chloe stood in the marble restroom, the cold reality crashing down on her like a tidal wave. Ethan hadn't just thrown a tantrum. He hadn't just walked away for a few days to make her feel guilty. He had systematically stripped her of everything he had provided for 5 long years, leaving her stranded on an island with a maxed-out card, a screaming child, and an ex-boyfriend who didn't have a single dollar to his name. The Hawaii trip ended before it even began. Unable to pay the resort deposit, Chloe, Julian, and Leo were forced to catch a red-eye flight back home, staying in a cheap, noisy airport motel for one night, before dragging their luggage back to the apartment. When they reached the front door of the apartment, a bright yellow notice was taped across the lock. Notice of lease termination: property must be vacated within 20 days unless market rate lease $4,200 per month is executed. Chloe tore the paper down, her fingers trembling as she unlocked the door. The apartment was deathly quiet. The living room was spotless, exactly as Ethan had left it. The home office, where Ethan used to sleep on a small cot, was completely empty. His laptop, his desk lamp, his 3 suits, and his mother's old photograph were gone. Not a single trace of his presence remained. "Mommy," Leo whined, dropping his backpack on the floor. "I'm hungry. Tell Mr. Miller to make the garlic chicken wings." Chloe looked at her son, a sharp, bitter lump forming in her throat. "He's not here, Leo." "Then call him." Leo stomped his foot. "He's supposed to cook for me." Before Chloe could answer, the front door was pushed open violently. Her parents, Robert and Mary, rushed into the living room. Robert's face was flushed dark red, holding a thick stack of medical bills in his hands. "Chloe," Robert roared, pointing a shaking finger at his daughter. "What the hell is going on?" "I went to the hospital this morning for my monthly heart checkup, and the billing desk told me my health coverage was canceled." Mary wiped tears from her eyes. "They asked us to pay $6,800 out of pocket for your father's medication. We don't have that kind of money. Where is Ethan?" Chloe shrank back, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan went overseas." "Overseas?" Robert gasped, clutching his chest. "Why would he go overseas? Without telling us? Did you two get into a fight?" He canceled all our benefits," Chloe sobbed, finally breaking down into tears. "He terminated the lease. He froze the cards." Robert stared at his daughter in absolute disbelief. Then his eyes slowly shifted to Julian, who was sitting on the couch, pretending to check his phone, trying to make himself invisible. "You." Robert walked over to Julian, his face contorted in rage. "This is because of you." Julian stood up defensively. "Mr. Miller, please calm down. This is between Chloe and Ethan." "Shut your damn mouth," Robert yelled, grabbing a glass vase from the side table and smashing it onto the floor right at Julian's feet. "For 2 years you lived off my daughter. You ate Ethan's food, took Ethan's money, and let my wife and me believe you were the one helping our family. I handled his admission paperwork when he had surgery." Robert wept, turning to Chloe with deep regret. "Ethan paid $40,000 out of his own pocket. He pulled 3 consecutive night shifts until his stomach bled just to make sure we had the best doctors." Leo, startled by the smashing glass and the shouting, burst into hysterical tears. He ran over to Julian, grabbing his shirt. "Julian, make them stop shouting. You said you were the strong dad." Julian, stressed, broke, and facing a $50,000 legal lawsuit from Ethan's lawyer, completely lost his temper. He shoved the 7-year-old boy away. "Get off me, you little brat. Stop crying." Leo tumbled onto the carpet, crying even harder, staring at Julian in absolute shock. For 5 years, Leo had treated Ethan like trash because Julian bought him toys and played games with him. But the moment the money ran out and the pressure mounted, the cool dad showed his true selfish colors. Leo crawled backward toward his mother, sobbing hysterically. "I want Mr. Miller. Mommy, I want Mr. Miller back." Chloe sat on the floor among the broken glass, holding her sobbing son, looking at her angry parents and her cowardly ex-boyfriend. For the first time in 5 years, she finally realized the horrific truth. Her family had never been protected by Julian's charm or her own cleverness. It had been held together entirely by the quiet, invisible blood and sweat of a man she had pushed into the shadows until he vanished forever. 2 years later, Singapore. Inside the high-ceiling glass auditorium of the Marina Bay Sands Convention Center, the annual Asia-Pacific Tech and Corporate Leadership Summit was underway. Over 1,000 executives, investors, and international media representatives filled the hall. On the main stage, Ethan stood behind the podium wearing a custom dark gray suit, his hair neatly styled, his posture straight and dignified. His face looked healthy, his skin clear, and his eyes radiated an effortless, calm authority that commanded the attention of the entire room. As the Senior Vice President of Asia-Pacific Operations, Ethan had successfully led his division to 3 consecutive quarters of record growth, becoming one of the most respected figures in the global corporate network. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Ethan concluded his keynote address in fluent English, giving a polite, elegant bow. The auditorium erupted into thunderous applause. Sitting in the very last row of the public gallery, dressed in a faded, worn jacket, was Chloe. She looked 10 years older. Her hair was dry and unkempt, her cheeks sunken, dark circles carved deep under her eyes. Over the past 2 years, her life had descended into an inescapable nightmare. After Ethan left, Julian fled the city to avoid the $50,000 lawsuit, leaving behind debts that creditors tried to pin on Chloe. Without Ethan's income and corporate subsidies, Chloe had to sell her luxury clothes and move her parents and Leo into a tiny rundown 2-bedroom apartment outside the city limits. She worked 12 hours a day as a department store cashier just to pay Leo's public school tuition and cover her father's monthly heart medication. Leo had developed severe behavioral issues, constantly being sent home from school for fighting, crying every night for Mr. Miller to come back and fix his broken toys. When Chloe read a business article online yesterday featuring Ethan's keynote speech in Singapore, she emptied her remaining savings to buy a cheap flight, dragging Leo along, praying for one last miracle. Mommy, 11-year-old Leo whispered beside her, wearing an oversized faded shirt. Is that Mr. Miller? Yes, Leo, Chloe choked out, tears blurring her vision. That's him. When the keynote ended, attendees flooded into the grand marble foyer for the networking reception. Chloe grabbed Leo's hand, pushing frantically through the crowd of polished executives and security guards, her eyes locked on the tall figure in the dark gray suit. Ethan! Chloe screamed at the top of her lungs, her voice cracking across the grand hall. Ethan! Ethan, who was conversing with 3 international investors, paused. He slowly turned his head. When his gaze landed on Chloe and Leo, there was no anger in his eyes. No satisfaction. His dark eyes remained as still, clear, and cold as deep water. Ethan! Chloe rushed forward, but 2 sharp-eyed private security guards immediately stepped in, blocking her path 3 feet away from Ethan. Ma'am, please maintain a respectful distance, the lead guard warned sternly. Ethan, please. Chloe wept, dropping to her knees right there on the polished marble floor of the luxury convention center, completely abandoning her pride in front of hundreds of international executives. Look at me. Look at Leo. Leo, frightened and overwhelmed, fell to his knees beside his mother, crying tears of genuine remorse. Mr. Miller. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I called you Mr. Miller. I'm sorry I didn't let you write in my book. Please come home. Julian took all my toys and left. I want my real dad back. The surrounding crowd whispered in confusion, looking at the weeping woman and child, then looking at the distinguished vice president. Ethan stood straight, his hands loosely clasped in front of him, looking down at the 2 people kneeling at his feet. He didn't bend down to pick up the boy. He didn't offer a handkerchief to the woman. He looked at them the exact same way he would look at 2 strangers asking for directions on the street. Mrs. Miller. Ethan spoke quietly, his voice smooth, clear, and utterly calm. I believe you have mistaken me for someone else. No, I haven't. Chloe sobbed, reaching out toward his shoes though the security guard kept her from touching him. Ethan, I was wrong. I was blind. I let Julian manipulate me. I didn't appreciate everything you did for our family. I've suffered for 2 years, Ethan. I've paid for my mistakes every single day. Ethan looked at her gently, his expression almost compassionate, yet infinitely distant. You didn't pay for your mistakes, Chloe, Ethan said softly. You simply experienced the reality of living without the man who bore your burdens for 5 years. Chloe froze, her weeping catching in her throat. You told me that I was just being jealous, Ethan continued, his tone light as if discussing the weather. You told me that Julian worked harder than me to keep Leo safe. You told me that I didn't belong in your family photos. He looked down at Leo, who was staring up at him with wide, tear-filled, desperate eyes. Leo, Ethan said, his voice quiet and steady. When you were 5, you told me that I only checked your homework and didn't know how to smile. You told me you wanted Julian to be your dad. I was wrong, Daddy. Leo wailed, reaching out his small, dirty hands. I was just a kid. I didn't know. You were old enough to choose who held your hand, Ethan replied softly. And I was wise enough to respect your choice. Ethan turned to his executive assistant, who was standing beside him holding his briefcase. David, please inform event security to assist this woman and her child out of the venue so the reception can proceed. Yes, Vice President Miller, the assistant nodded respectfully. Ethan turned back, giving Chloe and Leo a polite, final bow, the kind of courteous bow one gives at the end of a business transaction. I wish you and your family a peaceful life, Mrs. Miller. He turned around. He didn't walk fast. He didn't look back. He walked smoothly beside his international colleagues, stepping toward the VIP elevator bank at the far end of the hall. Ethan, no. Chloe screamed, her voice echoing frantically through the high ceilings of the convention center as security guards gently but firmly escorted her and Leo toward the exit. Ethan, please. Give us one more chance. The elevator doors opened. Ethan stepped inside. As the polished chrome doors slowly slid shut, Ethan stood tall, his posture relaxed, his heart light and whole. The gap narrowed. 4 inches. 2 inches. Clack. The doors sealed tight, cutting off her cries, cutting off her regret, and sealing the past into total, permanent darkness. The elevator smoothly ascended toward the top floor. Ethan looked out through the glass wall at the breathtaking Singapore skyline, at the endless ocean stretching toward the bright, sunlit horizon ahead. The air was clear. The sky was boundless. And his life was finally his own.